להם. Thank you. שנאמר, ולא תכונם. Because it says, you should not, what? לא תכונם, and לא תכונם, the word לא תכונם is ambiguous. The Gemara talks about different possibilities. For example, you shouldn't give them a gift, which obviously creates the discussion about giving gifts to non-Jews during Christmas, first of the year, and all of that. There is לא תיתן להם חן, they shouldn't find grace in your eyes. And then there is a third possibility, לא תיתן להם חניה בקרקע. That from there, the Gemara learns what? That you shouldn't rent them homes or sell them homes. That's also, we will see later on, if we'll have the time in the third class, there was a huge discussion. I remember I was in Memphis, but the chief rabbi of Tzfat basically created some kind of a claim that we shouldn't rent apartments to non-Jews. And that created a tremendous machloket, an issue. We will see bli neder all of it. So that's the first halacha. So the 7 Canaanite nations has a different status from all the other people, and they really have 2 options. They should drop their idols or die or get out of it. Okay. Which obviously creates another issue. The 7 Canaanite nations are obviously gone, but we have other religions in the state of Israel. If we define one of those religions as idol worshipping, we have a problem according to the Rambam, right? Okay, just have that in mind. Next. אין מוכרים להם בתים ושדות בארץ ישראל ובסוריה מוכרים להם בתים אבל לא שדות. You shouldn't sell them any homes or fields in Eretz Israel. Why? Because if you sell a field to a non-Jew, you basically מפקיע the קדושה of the קרקע, right? And you don't want to do it. ואין מוכרים להם, ובסוריה, in Syria, which was an extension of Eretz Israel when David HaMelech conquered it, מוכרים להם בתים, you can sell them homes, אבל לא שדות, but you cannot sell them fields. Why? Because even in Syria, there is a chiyuv דרבנן of all מצוות התלויות בארץ, almost, in Syria itself. ומשכירים להם בתים בארץ ישראל, but you can rent homes or apartments in ארץ ישראל for them, ובלבד שלא יעשו שכונה, ואין שכונה פחות משלושה. But you can rent them some apartments, but you cannot allow them to create a neighborhood. What is a neighborhood? 3 homes. ומפני מה החמירו בשדה, מפני שיש בה 2, מפקיע מן העשרות ונותן להם חניה בקרקע. It says, why are we so stringent about fields? Because of 2 things. A, that you are undue קדושה of the land, the sanctity of the land, and B, when they have a field, so they will build a home, and they will have children, and we don't want it. Sounds very hard to swallow. I will put it like that, right? Okay. And then, something nice. מפרנסים עניי עובדי הכוכבים עם עניי ישראל מפני דרכי שלום. You will give tzedakah to עניי akum, to people who are poor, also if they are non-Jews, and you do it with Jewish poor people מפני דרכי שלום. This is another class that I'll give, not today, not tonight, not this next week, מתישהו, sometime. The idea of דרכי שלום, it means what? Ways of harmony. You don't want to create an animosity. So first and foremost, and this is not semantics, we have 2 different phrases. There is one mishum eiva, from animosity, and then we have darkei shalom, ways of harmony. There are 2 different things. Sometimes they coexist. Sometimes there are 2 different things. A, B. We like to say, oh, look how the Torah is so beautiful, right? Ways of harmony, and we will help non-Jewish poor people along the way with Jewish people, right? Sounds beautiful. If there was no darkei shalom, or if there was no animosity, or we will not be scared, would we do it or not? Because my question is, I'm just today it's a lot of questions. When you need to think about it. For example, I'll give you another example, which is a little bit more extreme. Okay, you are allowed to, let's say, help participate in extinguishing fire in the neighborhood, even if that house, let's say, belongs to a non-Jew. Why? Mishum Eva. Eva. Right? They will kill you if you're not going to do it. There will be animosity and hate and whatever it is. And let's say they will not. So what? You should let them have the fire by themselves, like they should deal with it because we don't care. What about Tselem Elokim? What about, fundamentals in the Torah? So this is obviously another shiur, another question. What exactly is how do we define morality? And do we need, quote unquote, a darkei shalom or mipnei eiva in order to save someone's life, even if it is to violate Shabbat? Or maybe all our priorities are so skewed that we don't understand that, when you talk about Shabbat, only Jews can be saved on Shabbat and not non-Jews. So I'm not going to answer any of those questions. I do have answers, but it's not for today. Okay. So then he says, so if non-Jewish people who are poor come to my field and they take from my leket, shechecha, ve'peah, from all the gifts that I give from the land, I will not what? I will not rebuke them. I will not say anything to them. They can take like any other Jews. And you can ask, hey, how are you doing? Afilu biyom chagam, even in their holidays, mipnei darkei shalom, ve'en koflim lehem shalom leolam. You can say hello, but don't be too nice. Just like, hey, how are you? I'm not really interested, and move on. Okay? ולא ייכנס לביתו של עובד כוכבים ביום חגו לתת לו שלום. You are not allowed to enter your non-Jewish friend's home in their holidays to tell him hello. מצאו בשוק, נותן לו שלום בשפה רפה ובכובד ראש. If you find your non-Jewish friend or acquaintance in the marketplace, you can just nod your head like a Tisha B'Av, shalom, and you move on. Now, I need to preface one more thing. Many of you, I'm sure, learned Masechet Avodah Zarah. And we know that the first few pages of Masechet Avodah Zarah, no one follows. No one follows anymore. And to the extent that the Meiri talks about the idea that everything that it says there from like Daf Bet till Daf Vav or Zayin, okay, it's not applicable anymore. They changed. The non-Jews changed. They are doing b'darkei adat. They are, let's say, they created some kind of a judicial codified law, and that they behave by that. So it's not the same non-Jews that the Mishnah and the Gemara talks about. There is paganism, and then there is not Judaism. Meaning there is paganism, there is Islam, there is Christianity, there is Buddhism, whatever it is, but it's not paganism, which the rabbis viewed as something terrible on all fronts, So now they are more moral, they are more ethical, so everything that we said there, almost everything that we said there is gone. No one followed. So now, might be that the Rambam basically quotes what? The Gemarot. And might be that it already changed. The Meiri is 14th century, Rambam is 12th century. Okay, now let's continue. אין כל הדברים האלה אמורים, אלא בזמן שגלו ישראל לבין העובדי כוכבים, או שיד העקום תקיפה על ישראל. It says everything we said before is when the Jews are basically dwelling among the non-Jews. אבל בזמן שיד ישראל תקיפה עליהם, but in times that the Jewish people control their lives, which means we are the majority or we have the power, אסור לנו להניח עובדי כוכבים בינינו. This is going to be harsh. We are not allowed to what? To let idol worshippers to dwell among us. ואפילו יושב ישיבת ארעי, even if he dwells here temporarily. או עובר ממקום למקום בסחורה, לא יעבור בארצנו. Even if he's traveling through our country, just come for business, 2-day business, and he goes home, you shouldn't allow him to come in. עד שיקבל עליו 7 מצוות שנצטוו בני נוח. Until you what? Until he accepted by himself the 7 mitzvot bnei noach. So they are talking about searching for chametz in your bags when you go to the hospital. I would like to propose that they will have at the airport. I'm cynical. I think you all think I'm serious. At the airport, to have a magnometer, this detector. Every non-Jew that comes, the question is not where is your passport, but rather, do you observe Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach? If the answer is yes, well, welcome. If the answer is no, get out of here. Right? It seems to be that it's very interesting that none of the miflagot datiyot, charediot, they don't want to apply that, right? Isn't that interesting? This is a Rambam meforash. Right? You live your life based on the Rambam. This is pretty simple. And then it says, שנאמר לו ישבו בארצך, that they should not dwell in your country, אפילו לפי שעה. They cannot even have coffee at the Ben Gurion airport. I'm not sure about the international, what do you call it, zoning, whatever, if they enter the Eretz Israel. So all those delegations that Pastor Hagee and all the rest of them, if we consider that as of Kochavim, they should not come in here. Not even for an hour, not even for a tour. Okay. But if he accepted upon himself the Sheva Mitzvot b'nei Noach, he shouldn't be a full-fledged Jew. הרי זה גר תושב, it's not a problem, he's a גר תושב, he's a convert who can sit here, dwell here, ואין מקבלים גר תושב אלא בזמן שהיובל נוהג. אבל לא בזמן שלא היובל נוהג, אין מקבלים אלא גר צדק בלבד. So the Rambam says now, and this is a very important thing for the rabbis who came after him, he says today there is no Yovel, there's no Jubilee. Therefore, why? Because the majority of the Jewish people are still not here, or because the majority of the other tribes are still not here. It's also a discussion. But you cannot accept ger toshav anymore. Only ger tzedek. What is ger tzedek? A full-fledged Jew, meaning a full-fledged convert who is committing to all Taryag mitzvot. Now, so if the Yovel does not apply anymore, you cannot accept a ger toshav, which means what? Even if a non-Jew comes to you and says, I would like to be a ger toshav, what do you tell him? I'm sorry, I just can't have you here. So what do you tell him? I cannot have you here, get out, or you can stay, and it's a problem that I cannot accept you. What's the nafka mina? What's the ramification? The ramification is a little bit different if they can stay here or not. Which means if the non-Jew comes to you, I want to accept Sheva Mitzvot b'nei Noach, and you tell him, I'm really happy, but I cannot accept you because I don't have a jubilee, I don't have a beidin to do it, and he says, but I want to. So if we say it's because of us, you can stay. If we say we don't care, the fact that you cannot really be a ger toshav, you can't stay here, he will need to leave. Yes. If they want to fully convert, b'vakasha, that we accept. Yeah. Okay. So that was a very difficult Rambam. Yes, though. I don't want to go too much. Sheva Mitzvot b'nei Noach, I would just say a few of them. Sur Avodah Zarah, against idol worshipping, adultery, thievery, to place judges, ever min achai, retzicha, murder, and there is one more that I forgot. I said judges. Birkat Hashem. Thank you. Blasphemer. Not to bless. Again, exactly. Okay. So now the Ravid, Rabbi Avraham ben David. This is, by the way, a very interesting thing. Again, not for this class. I'm sorry. We will need to move on. As I told you, the Rambam was in Spain, then Israel for a little bit, and then went to Egypt. The Ravid was more from France. Okay, and he says the following. Says the Ravid, Rabbi Avraham ben David. אפילו יושב בישיבת ארי עובר ממקום למקום בסחורה לא יעבור בארצנו. He quotes the Rambam that says what? The Rambam says that even for temporarily, the non-Jew cannot just go by Eretz Israel if he did not accept upon himself Sheva Mitzvot b'nei Noach. Says the Ravid, אמר אברהם זאת לא מצאנו ולא שמענו מעולם, והפסוק שמביא בזין האומות הוא, ואפילו לדבריו ישיבה כתיב בהו ולא העברה. Says the Ravid, I have no idea what the Rambam is talking about. He says, since when we have a prohibition in the Torah for a non-Jew who didn't accept upon himself Sheva Mitzvot b'nei Noach, that he cannot what? Just come by for business. The only thing is what? Is that he shouldn't dwell here, because if he will dwell here, he will build an idol and he will be a bad influence and all of that. But if he just come for business, let him come and let him go. There is no problem. Or he claims that the Rambam brings a pasuk from Shiv'a Amamim. We know that there are 7 Canaanite nations that basically dwell in the land of Israel before we came in, and they have a different status. They had to what? To get out of here. The other nations, okay, anyone who does not have the Busite at the end, the Jebusite, Canaanites, Amorites, all of them, if you have other nations, we don't need to annihilate them. They're not exactly welcome here, but we don't need to annihilate them. So if they come in, there's no problem, right? There is no problem. That's what the Ravid says. So we have a machloket, at least regarding what? Temporarily stay of idol worshippers in the land of Israel. Okay, now let's continue. The Rambam says at the end, so I'm looking at the end of the daf. It says, Eizu ger toshav. What's the definition of a ger toshav? Ze akum. This is an idol worshipper. שקיבל עליו שלא יעבוד עקום עם שאר המצוות שנצטוו בני נוח. So he is a non-Jew who accepted upon himself not to what? To worship idols, and all the rest of the שבע מצוות בני נוח, ולא מל ולא טבל, הרי זה מקבלים אותו והוא מחסידי אומות העולם. He doesn't need to go to the mikveh, he doesn't need to do ברית מילה. We accept him as חסידי אומות העולם. A ger toshav is a wonderful thing, which, by the way, that obviously creates another discussion, again, not for today, just for you to have in mind. Our approach towards non-Jews to accept it upon themselves, what we call the Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach, and the idea of what Judaism is all about. We don't want everyone to be a Jew. We're not interested in that. If they want, they're welcome, according to some, to become Gerim. But if not, they can be good people, great people, just have Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach. And then he said, ולמה נקרא שמו תושב? Why do we call him ger toshav? We have ger tzedek, which is what? A righteous convert, right? A full-fledged convert who is becoming a full Jew. Then you have ger toshav. So he says, why is it called ger toshav? Oh, of what? לפי שמותר לנו להושיבו בינינו בארץ ישראל. Because he's allowed to what? To dwell here. Toshav, resident. So he's a ger that his reward is that he can stay in Eretz Israel. So who can live in Israel? Jews and non-Jews who accepted upon themselves Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach. Also, non-Jews who did not accept upon themselves Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach, if they come only for what? Business, tourism, health issues, but not for permanent stay. Why? No, that's the Rambam.
Probably commented on. I mean, what about Shabbat? You know, how ways it get the aim of Kabbalim get Shabbat of his man Hayovel. So here he's talking about his man Hayovel.
Oh no. That's no. He says Ilchot Surah, and then he says Kmo shebe'anu b'ilchot akum, the Rambam. So you go back to the Rambam and he says, yes, there is a possibility for ger toshav, but not today. He continues with the same statement that today I cannot accept ger toshav, but in times that we can, they can stay in Israel. So not sure, because the Rambam talks only about akum. We shouldn't rent them and sell them homes. Not ger toshav. Ger toshav can stay here. Can buy an apartment, can rent an apartment. Yeah. So yes. Yeah, family. So Phil is so the Rambam was not in Eretz Israel. Okay. The question, and that's what I said before we read the Rambam. The Rambam wrote it in the 12th century. There is no globalism. There is no United Nations. There are no Jews. He knows about the Jews in Egypt. He knows about the Jews in Taiman. He knows about the Jews in Provence. He knows about where are all the Jews, but he has no idea what's going on there. And the effect, exactly. And also there, it was not so much of an effect because every country has their own king and his own meshigas of what to do with the Jews. But today, when you know that the way you treat minorities, Jews in other countries as minorities will be affected by that, this is a different story.
Think of the Second World War.
Okay.
Not allowing
All right. Yeah. So we obviously come. All right. I agree. I don't think there was. That's what I said. It is so hard in the 21st century to derive exact halachic, meaning if I will come, I will say it very direct. If I, as a posek of 21st century, will come and you will ask me about, who should live here, and I will pull up the Rambam and say, this is my answer, I think I shouldn't serve as a rabbi. I'll be very honest. I can take this Rambam, take what was said from the 12th century until the 21st century. Then you need to also think about the effects and the ramifications of your halachic decisions. Okay? If your halachic decisions will cause the death, God forbid, of, a kehillah in somewhere else, you need to be careful. So, again, we're not making psika right now, but that's what the Rambam now. The only thing is, you cannot ignore him. That's where the problem, not the problem. That's, I think, where the challenge and the beauty is. The Rambam is the posek, is a fundamental posek that we always take into account his opinion. So as a rabbi now, I cannot just come and say, Phil, look, time changed, the Rambam is irrelevant. That's not serious. That's also you should serve as a rabbi. If that's your opinion, you shouldn't serve as a rabbi either. You need to take the Rambam and you need to deal with the Rambam. You might find a contrary opinion of someone else who has a high status, or you make an interpretation, or you say that the time is so different and the need is so important that you're going to say that the Rambam really didn't talk about the times that we live in. It's a claim. You need to substantiate. Okay. One more Rambam, in order just to make it even more difficult, if it was not difficult enough. The Torah in Dvarim says, we're on page 2 for the people on the Zoom. So it says, "Som tasim alecha melech, asher yivchar Hashem Elokecha, mikrochecha tasim alecha melech, lo tuchal latet alecha ish nochi asher lo achicha hu." Right? So the Torah says that you should appoint a king on you, but it says, "Mikerev achecha," from within your brothers, and then it says, "Lo tuchal latet alecha ish nochri." You should not appoint upon yourself someone who is what? Who is a nochri, a non-Jew. Okay? Now, this pasuk talks about what? About a king. However, the Gemara already expanded the idea and says not only for a king, but lechol misra shebaolam. Every position that is a public position that has power, you should appoint only Jews. Says the Rambam. Ein ma'amidin melech mikal girim. You are not allowed to appoint a king from a community of girim. Filu achar kama torot, ad shetehe im, meaning even a convert, after many generations, still you shouldn't appoint him what? As a king. Only if he was born to a Jewish mother. שנאמר לו, תוכל לתת לך איש נוכרי אשר לא אחיך הוא. And then says the Rambam, ולא למלכות בלבד, אלא לכל שררות שבישראל. And not only for what? To appoint him as a king, but also for any other public positions. לא שר צבא, he cannot be appointed on what? On a minister of in the army, or police, לא שר 50 או שר 10, אפילו ממונה על אמת המים שמחלק ממנה לשדות. He cannot be even responsible for what? For the irrigation system of the municipality. ואין צריך לומר דיין או נשיא שלא יהיה לעם ישראל. And obviously, to be a judge or to be a minister, only Jews. שנאמר מקרב אחיך תשים עליך מלך, כל משימות שאתה משים לא יהיו אלא מקרב אחיך. Every public position needs to be only from among the Jews. Now I want to ask you a question. So can we appoint someone who is not Jewish for, I don't know, to be the guy who is responsible on cleaning the streets of Yerushalayim? No, I obviously understand. The answer should be no. Can you serve as a Chaver Knesset, as a Sar, with any authority? Obviously not. So you're basically telling me that we cannot really create what? Equal opportunities for minorities. And by the way, we're talking even about what? Even about someone who what? Who accepted upon himself Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach. And even sometimes even a full convert. So basically, we have a major problem. How can we have a modern state that not only that allowed, but that basically pride itself about diversity and harmony? We can't do that. Basically, when we signed Megillat HaAtzmaut, you remember Megillat HaAtzmaut? We still have it. All of us, not only one side. All of us has Megillat HaAtzmaut. And there we said what? Everyone can be elected. You know, by the way, that the idea was, especially among many thinkers and leaders pre-state, that there is going to be for a few years a Jewish prime minister and then an Arab prime minister, because all the Toshavim of Palestine, which will become Israel, will work together in order to build a beautiful country for both people. People from the Tnu'a Tzionit. Yes, there's no problem, because that was before nationalism. Meaning, they said, look, we have one territory, we are both going to be here, so let's share everything. That's before. The response was, no, we have one territory, and it's only for us and not for you. From the Arab side.
47, not 48.
Yeah, pre-state. That's a pre-state. Now, yes.
Rambam's definition. Why shepherds?
No, not yet. Not yet. Yeah, simple understanding, no. He needs to be a Jew. Yeah. Look, the Rambam did not know too many different kinds of Jews. The only different type of Jews that he did know was whom? The Karaites. There was a tremendous amount of Karaim in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. He fought them. Very good. That's what I said. He had no clue. What does it mean, a conservative Jew, a reformed Jew, an unaffiliated Jew, an affiliated half Jew? Yeah, he had no clue what those types of Jews. Basically, Phil, maybe you should say that because I'm recorded. Phil said that that basically it's irrelevant. I will not say that. I think it will. Don't forget, Phil. What you do now, it's not fair. Why does it mean it's not fair? Because you are judging a 12th century posek who lived in a different setting from the 21st century with Western values. Just let me just finish. Other nations view Jews very similar to the way Jews view them. Okay, so when you live in an environment, they think you are the devil. They think you shouldn't exist. Your perspective on them, you know what? It's even pretty good, because we are allowed to what? We don't need to. You're not saved by the bell, by the way. You are not saved by the bell. So the thing is that it's not, again, like what we sometimes look at the Rambam and say, no, what's the connection to us? We also need to be very careful saying what's our connection to him. That's A. B, in terms of authority, with all the problems that we can have with him, he is a halachic authority. We have a Masoret. And we have a Masoret, and it comes from the Gemara, from the Torah, from the Tanaim, Amoraim, Geonim, Rishonim, Achronim. That's what we have. We do have evolution in halacha. We do have advancement, but we are bound to the poskim that were before. Deal with them. We cannot dismiss them. B. And this is something very important. We live, Baruch Hashem, in a country that, Baruch Hashem, we are protected. And we have an army, and we have challenges, but Baruch Hashem, most of us, even if you came from the state or from Canada or whatever it is, there was basically, even if you felt anti-Semitism, there was no pogrom. The what? Yeah, but if you compare it to what was in the Middle Ages, Jews were not second-class citizens. They were fourth second-class citizens. So the entire views were also what? Being prescribed by the environment that I live in. Jews were blamed for everything. Do you know that in England, there was a massacre, and I'm pretty now becoming an expert on England, but there was a massacre of, I think, 50 Jews. Because of what? Because in the coronation of Edward I, the non-Jews said that the Jews put an ayn around him. So they killed 50 Jews, they massacred them. So I should treat them different. So our views on them also could be influenced by them. Yes. So yes, you can talk about what they call ministerial authority and parliamentary responsibility, whatever. It might be different, but it seems to be here that I cannot appoint a non-Jew even to be in charge on watering a planet. Well, advisors it might be, I don't know, but with advising, that's the problem here with all the yoatzim, you know. Yeah, so right. So we will talk about some of it a little bit later, but that's according to the Rambam. So if I'm done with the Rambam. The Rambam basically created tremendous amounts of challenges to a modern state. And the first one who really dealt with this thing was Rav Herzog. Funny enough, now his grandson needs to deal with some other issues. But this is his grandfather, who was the chief rabbi of the state of Israel since its inception. And it was from 1936. He was the chief rabbi of Israel, of Palestine, and then obviously became Israel. And he passed away in 1959. So he was obviously not only a posek, he also he had a doctorate. By the way, his Sefer, Tchuka Israel, is now being translated into English by Koren, which is very, very important. I told Matthew, so I think it's very important. So basically, he says the following. He wrote a book by the name Tchuka Israel. You know, Tchuka, constitution. We don't have a constitution, you know that, right? Israel does not have a constitution. That's why we have what we call Chukei Yesod, basic laws, and this is the mess now, exactly. Now, the problem is that the problem of not having a Chukah is because at the beginning of the state of Israel, we didn't have time for that, right? We announced the state of Israel, we danced some hora, and then we went to fight against all the other friends that didn't like us. So we didn't have the time. During the years, obviously, we have terrorism, we have wars and all, but really it's not that issue. The issue is that we are afraid that we will not be able to what? To agree. Because in this chukah, you will need to define how Shabbat is going to look like, how Yom Tov is going to look. Is that a religious state? Is that a democratic state? Can they really coexist? Okay. By the way, in Megillat Ha'atzmaut, does it say Medina Yehudit v'Demokratit or רק Yehudit? Just Yehudit. It says it's a Jewish state. But But now we understand that there is obviously a problem, because not only that it doesn't say democratic, there is another problem. Who is a Jew? What does it mean, Medina Yehudit? Everyone needs to eat gefilte fish on Rosh Hashanah? That's the Yehudit, or Yehudit is based on halacha? That's exactly the issue. Those are the issues. And then it continues with what? With Chok HaShvut. In Chok HaShvut, it says what? Shehidgayer. Someone who his grandfather is a Jew, or that he converted. But it didn't say what? How? Back then in the 80s, I remember that as a child. Rabbi Melubavi Zichrono Livracha, he screamed and yelled, it should be what? Hitgayer ka'alacha, and then it didn't pass, whatever it is, it was just Hitgayer, and this is where we are. Here in Israel, they love to do that. It's called kicking the can, right? Someone else will deal with it. Bezrat Hashem, someone else will deal with it. And then there is someone else, and the time comes, and yesh bayot. So it's easy, obviously, to talk about it after retroactively. But those are the issues that will need to be solved someday. So, Rav Herzog says the following. I specifically quoted some of those statements because he, first and foremost, he basically created the target. Take a look at what he says. That's 1936. I think he wrote Chukah Israel around really before the State of Israel was established, and it was published later or something like that. So around the years of 1946 to 1950. Okay, that's the time. So he says like that. המטרה העיקרית שלי, my main goal, הייתה, in this book, להראות שקיימת אפשרות ליצור תחוקה למדינה היהודית ולכונן בה משטר משפטי שלא יהיה בשום פרט בניגוד לתורתנו הקדושה. In my book, he's writing a thesis. Basically, my leading question and my leading goal is what? To create a mechanism that we can create what? A state, a what? Modern state, a Jewish modern state that does not conflict with the laws of the Torah. Now, now take a look at what he says. Because if God forbid, נתרפא במלאכת שמיים זו, בעת ההכרעה הזאת חס ושלום, he says if we will not come up with a solution of how can we create a modern state which does not contradict the laws of Torah, שהרוב הגדול של היישוב יתייאש חס ושלום מן התורה, ויאמץ לו לבלי להתחשב עם תורת קודשנו, שורש נשמתנו, איזו תחוקה גויית מודרנית מן המוכן, וזה כבר בעצמו יהיה הרס פנימי גמור. Unbelievable. Rav Herzog says, look, I am going to preface right now, I am going to jump hoops in order to show you that we don't need to adopt the British Constitution, the American Constitution, the Australian Constitution, the French Constitution. We have a constitution. How does it called? How does it called? Torah. We have a Torah. Now, I understand in this Torah, we have some issues that are problematic when you have a modern state. My goal is to what? To show you they are not mutually exclusive. Now, you understand immediately. And why? Because he's afraid that if we will not come up with a solution, the majority of the people in Israel, who are obviously what, at that time, were not religious, they will say, if the Torah and the Nevi'im and all of them cannot really prepare for us a constitution, we're just going to do copy-paste. We will go on Google, we'll take the constitution of French, England, America, we'll create something together, and that will be what? Our constitution. So basically, he is moved by what? More than just reality. He's moved by what? Very good. He is concerned about one thing, the Torah. The Torah must be relevant to the people. We came here to Eretz Israel not just to build another America. We came here to create a Jewish state. Now he's well aware. A Jewish halachic state will create an issues for what? For modern state Israel. Don't forget, also, between the 46 to 50, we are not the state of Israel that we are now. You will see it in his, by the way, in his writings. But he's driven by one thing. He wants to make the Torah relevant. Because it's a Jewish state. He has vision for the state of Israel. And he says we can find a way to reconcile contradictions. And then he continues on. And he says, הדבר הקשה ביותר עם האופי הדמוקרטי של המדינה, he says the most challenging thing with the democratic nature of this state, שעל כל פנים במידה חשובה עומדים ויעמדו על זה האו"ם, ומוסרם לנו את הכוח לייסד את המדינה היהודית שאלת זכויות המיעוטים. This is one of the things that the United Nations will allow us to create a state is that they need to know that we will secure what? The rights of the minorities. Don't forget, again, 75 years goes by. How many people of us think that we will not keep the rights of the minorities, that the United Nations will take away our country? This is pre-state. He understands that the only way to get the country is that we must what? Give equal rights to minorities, which obviously will contradict all the Rambam. We have a problem. So he says, Marty, what?
I mean, that was a requirement of the San Remo Treaty,
Sure.
that clearly, even though everything belongs to us, to the Jordan River, has to be cut. I mean, that was a requirement.
Without that,
So he obviously knew that.
yeah. So, by the way, he was involved also with some of the committees. And then he says, אמרתי ושוב אני חוזר ואומר, שוב, האומות המאוחדות בוודאי יעמדו על זה בכל תוקף, שעל כל פנים בשטח המדיני והאזרחי והמשפטי לא תקופחנה זכויות המיעוטים, ושיהיה להם חופש גמור לקיים את הדתות שלהם ואת החינוך של העדות שלהם. He says, they are going to insist equal right in everything, which is social, judicial, elections, education. Meaning, if we will not allow them to practice whatever they practice, we will not get a state. So, because we want a state. And don't forget also, the atrocities of the Shoah are starting to be known. Jews are everywhere. They are looking to come here. We want to create what? A state. And those are the conditions. Those are the preconditions. So Rav Herzog says, if I want to make the Torah relevant, I know we're going to have some michsholim, some obstacles. But we will need to find a way to resolve them. So then he says, so he starts with what? He starts with what I will call, I don't want to call it the political, because it's not a political, but it's the, how would you call it? He's driven by making the Torah relevant. A, B is driven by the fact that he must have a country. Jews must have their country. So then he says, ברובו של הפרק הקודם לא הודגש כל צורכו במצב שהוא, המצב כמו שהוא. ועתה הגיע הזמן להסתכל על המצב כמו שהוא ממש, ולבחון את ההלכה מתוך אותה הסתכלות ריאלית. This is unbelievable. He basically tells you, I am going to look at the halakha from a realistic perspective. That's it. He's not embarrassed. He doesn't say it. He says, I am going to view halakha from, I'm putting my glasses of realia, of realism. And he says,
Although the reality then as well as now